Yeah, we're ready. We're ready to do it.
Hello. 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 Hello.
Tony Caravan.
You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
I tried. And away we go.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
Okay, I will.
Your papers, please.
Got some weird comment yesterday, and I don't know if it was just somebody joking with me or not. About criticizing. I've had a headache all night long. It can't have anything to do with blood pressure, does it? Or did I eat too much ice cream yesterday? I'm going to check my blood pressure just for the heck of it. Everybody should have one of these things. I mean, they're not perfect. I have to lower. I'm going to lower my body so this is up at the level of my heart. So they say. If the batteries are still alive in this thing, I haven't used it in a while. In like a month. See what happens. How y'all doing? It's supposed to rain today.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
The only station that matters.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Okay, let's see. 115/64, and my heart rate is 55, so I certainly don't have high blood pressure, and I don't have any irregular heartbeat. I mean, a 64 is kind of low, but, you know, as far as things go, it ain't bad. Or like that cover song by Three Dog Night. It ain't easy. So I don't know. I think it's sugar. I think I ate too much ice cream the past couple days. Then I watched this other thing about that, you know, they say that, you know, dementia, what's his face, could be his like for ice cream could have some factor to do with dementia. So who knows? It's either that or that CT scan they gave me in the head for that thing that was unnecessary. He's decided to create a giant tumor in my brain. Yeah, you know, all that kind of stuff. What can I say?
Good morning.
And of course, the people in my studio audience.
Really funny. Really funny.
They don't really care, you know. Do you care?
Okay.
She doesn't care.
Hey, it's me. How you doing, man?
I don't know. I had a little bit of headache last night. I took an aspirin. I don't like to take aspirins because they're no good for your liver and kidneys. Did you know that? I mean, generally speaking, you know, they're not good for you. So I have a little bit of a headache. My eyes are a little glassy. So, yeah. But I don't know. My blood pressure's fine. Heart rate's fine. I'm drinking coffee. I had an apple, a couple of prunes. I'm not constipated. I think the air's fresher down here than it maybe was in the bedroom. I don't know. Maybe I got mold up there from the leakage. I added a new feature, but it doesn't stay on long. It's the lava lamp over by the game over thing. I don't know if that's showing or getting cut over. But it doesn't like turn, like stay on eternally. And I see it's using CPU, which is ridiculous because it's this tiny like GIF or GIF file, as some people call them. But, you know, I like to have all this kind of stuff on here. The lava lump. I guess that could be put above. The garbage man is outside. I guess I could put that down further because it's still going to stay. As long as it stays in front of Tony Caravan Live, we're fine. There's my garbage man. All right. Well, let's see what's going on as far as we usually do to get this show started. And since there's that noise outside, when you have a slight headache, any kind of noise is like bothering you anyway.
The Weather Watch forecast.
So let's take a look at the Earth view here. And this is from NOAA, of course. And this was taken, we can double check here just so you know. This is today. That's basically UTC time. So this is fairly recent photo within the past couple hours, hour or two. And this is what's going on in the former United States right this morning. And as you can see, there's like some heavy-duty, thicker clouds down in, from the Gulf heading towards Florida into the Georgia and the Carolinas, and then actually up into into Virginia. And up north, you can see some more clouds. Pennsylvania looks like there's some stuff on the eastern side. And then along the east, the northeast, there's some clouds. There's like a little crazy, real big, high, puffy cloud thing going on there way up northeast. That kind of looks a little scary, doesn't it? I forget the names of all my clouds. I'm not a meteorologist. I just report this stuff on TV. But again, just like yesterday, the better part of the midsection of the country into the plains heading west is just clear. I mean, just imagine what it's like just being out in the field out there, just looking up in the sky and seeing all those stars, It's crazy. I remember once I went to visit a friend in Oklahoma, and he drove me out to middle of, as far as I was concerned, it was the middle of nowhere. I'm thinking like, what are we going? Where are you taking me? And just turned off the car, turned off the lights, and walked up to this like rock. I'm like, okay, I guess the guy's gonna like kill me out here or something for something I did in high school. I thought we were friends, but he goes, have a seat, man. So I sit down. He goes, look up, and I looked up, and there it was. It was a spot where you could just see, like everything. It was just the stars like dust. It was just the incredible sight. But anyway, I think I like this as a weather forecasting thing because, not only does it show you the city centers, that's what all these lights are. This is where civilization, so to speak, is. But, because of the contrast, you really get to see the clouds even better than the daylight views because of the contrast. So it's looking like, wherever you see clouds, you probably have a possibility of rain, or at the very least, it's going to be a cloudy day. So they say it's going to rain up in my neck of the woods, but quite frankly, my neck of the woods looks semi-clear. I dodged a bullet yesterday. I was afraid we were going to get some serious, flooding up in my attic. But a weird thing did happen, and I don't really, we're done with this thing.
The Weather Watch forecast.
A weird thing did happen, and I have to check one more thing I forgot to check. I should have kept that up while I was looking at it. I just wanted to see my own local weather. It's 57 degrees outside my studio right now. And according to this, it's supposed to be sun and clouds, like a cloudy day with the sun pulling through, and fog. and we're not supposed to get a thunderstorm and rain until Friday, Saturday, the weekend. So I still have like 3 days of semi-peace of mind, supposedly. But anyway, we did get like a rain, like just a little, it wasn't like a big downpour, but it was like, you know, like rain passes through sometimes and you get what I call it, it's like a cloud burst. And Thomas Dolby had a song called Cloud Burst. And there was this cloud burst, and I happened to be up there at the time. And of all of the things I had set up, all these various little trays of, to capture rain, the water had decided to come down like along the wall in the one spot where it wasn't covered. Very weird, like total Murphy's Law, type of thing. Just my luck. But fortunately, the rain lasted literally just a couple of minutes, and then that was that. So much for that. The daily photo of the day. This is me and my cat. This is kind of what I do in the daytime. My cat's turned into like a lap cat. So this is the cat on my lap, my legs up on a, footrest. And what you can't see is like my HD TV, and I'm on my comfy chair up in my bedroom. And the cat's just hanging out. And I just had to take the picture because the thing's there all the time. That's that. If you're curious about Mr. Kitty, who didn't even come down today for some reason. And we've got the news again. So let's see what's going on here. This is Google News, of course. This isn't anything I'm making up. Beaches sit empty and fragile habitats hang in the balance as crews race to clean up a Southern California oil spill. It's the same story from yesterday. Amplify Energy stock price plummets 51% after oil spill off California. These things really don't make much sense. The reactionary thing of people who follow stocks. They watch these stations, somebody says something, and then, and it's like everybody jumps. They either buy or they sell, It's like, look, yeah, this, I'm against oil spills, just like I'm against everything because it's the year 2021. And in the year 2021, I don't care whether it's something you like or dislike. It's like the pipelines. I don't care whether you want a pipeline or don't want a pipeline. Point of the matter, it's the year 2021, and we build a pipeline. That pipeline should be secure. All right? This isn't 10, right? Or, you know what I mean? And so it amazes me, and that's why this whole, there's nothing here. There's a little bit of a talk. Schumer sets up Wednesday vote to suspend debt ceiling. Which is going to be tied into this whole, they're trying to tie this into a, the infrastructure bill. But the idea is that you're not going to have, I have no faith in the infrastructure bill. And again, whether or not you're into it or not, of course we need infrastructure. But my personal experience outside my window and the damage that these contractors, infrastructure contractors, caused to my house and other houses along this street are testament that there's not going to be any successful infrastructure done around here. I mean, they may throw some money at Amtrak, but didn't Amtrak just have an accident? Right? They may throw some money at some bridges, but good luck with that because you got to wonder who the heck they're going to get that has the talent and ability to to understand the architectural drawings and the engineers, the plans that these people put forth. It's no doubt that we have some very talented individuals, degreed individuals coming out of our higher, universities, higher places of learning, whatever. Great architects, etc. However, that said, It's a question about the people who have to implement that. And do we really have those people who have the capabilities? Remember, this isn't building the railroads with picks and shovels and slave labor pretty much the way they did it, 120 some years ago. Manual labor, with various foremans and people directing them, etc. No, these are big contractors with heavy equipment and stuff like that. We don't even have enough people to run the heavy equipment. I say that all the time. Some other Catholic Church thing I see, and then a 911 call from a man who claims to be this guy on the Appalachian Trail. In other words, this is this whole story. I'm not going to push that story, and I'm not going to push that other weird one either. But this idea with like Schumer and the debt ceiling and this, Manchin breaks with party leaders over strategy on debt ceiling and Biden's economic package. The thing about all this stuff, these are the same old stories. And there's so many other things going on, and it's all a diversion, right? Have you heard any of the stories coming out about, what happened in China and Wuhan and all that stuff? Is anybody talking about the 77 warplanes China sent over Taiwan? Is anybody talking about, what's going on in the continent of Africa? We forgot about Venezuela, South America, and all that kind of stuff. How about what's happening at the border? How about the thing itself? And how about all the conflicting reports back and forth, and this stuff.
Your papers, please.
You see pictures of people walking on everywhere from New York streets, and they're just, so it's like, I don't know. To me, all of this stuff is just, hogwash. The so-called news. Like, it's hardly news. The oil spill was, is old news. We know about it. Fix it. Okay, fix it. It's the year 2021. There's some incredible things they have. There's all kinds of strange and unusual, chemistry developments they have, things that can like absorb this stuff and turn it into like beads and stuff, and then take those beads and somehow recycle those beads, and they float and they won't get, they won't hurt wildlife or the shorelines. I mean, there's technology out there being developed, and a lot of it's developed with taxpayer money, which obviously is usually in many cases is channeled into universities. So fix it, fix it. And don't tell us about some infrastructure bill or debt ceiling when there's no money. They got rid of the idea now of money. Banks can basically just loan whatever they want to. They don't even have to have the money on their books. They used to have, like, they were able to loan 10 times what they had. Now it's like free form. And the Fed overnight, loans, the central banks, they just loan money out, and it's just ledger money. It's not even like fiat currency. It's not printed money. They're not printing money anymore. It's just electronic transfer of digital currency. It's why it makes me kind of wonder, even like, all these people who are still like big on Bitcoin and stuff like that. I'm going, these guys are even like bypassing Bitcoin. I mean, their attitude is like, we just say it's money, we'll just transfer it onto ledgers of banks, our ledgers, not yours. People don't get that. And then this idea, like I say, there's 19,000 homicides committed in America a year minimum. It's probably over 20,000. But, according to government statistics, it's around 19. They only update these things every 2 or 3 years, which is also, considering you have millions of bureaucrats, wouldn't you think that we would have stuff up to the minute, like daily reports or something, right? What do these bureaucrats do besides drive $60,000 SUVs and have lunch every day and go to parties and live in the burbs, right? Because they're certainly not doing any, producing any material. But anyway, so you got this story, and they got the dog, the bounty hunter. Didn't that guy go to jail because he was, did some kind of thing before? And so now they got this guy going after some guy, and it's big news on all the networks, and they're pushing it. It's even on Google News. Google News, right? Tries that, if you say something on YouTube or something, they'll slap you across the face, or, whatever, slap your hands and punish you, right? Like a child. And this is on Google News. And it's hey, it's a diversionary story. What about the other 19,000 homicides, most of which went, unsolved and go unsolved every year? That's every year, by the way, not just 1 year or accumulated. So that's a diversionary story, right? Kind of weird. Anyway, I didn't want to get into that today. In fact, basically the title of the show today is Once Upon a Time. Today's August 5th. And, August 5th, October 5th. Maybe I am losing my mind. It's October 5th, 2021. I just put in the chat happiness, and the title's Once Upon a Time. Maybe I am losing my mind. I don't know. If I do, I do. I was thinking about weird things last night. The reason I put this thing happiness up was the idea that, why can't people just be happy? It's almost like you should be able to just be happy, and not pay attention. The less you pay attention to this stuff, the more likely you are to just be happy. It's like I was saying before, and it was a title of a previous show, freedom is fun. It's just have fun. Why not? And be free. It's you have to pull yourself away from these people. I talk about some of that stuff. And again, the book's out. Yesterday I gave a big, a lot of talk about it. But there it is. It's there. I've got a stack of them behind me. You can see a stack there. But, the book's here. Big stack of books right there. Codex is behind it. That's still for sale. I guess there was another thing I was going to put up, and the idea was that freedom is fun. I think that was it. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know if there's a limit to how much text I could actually put up, but freedom. Let's see this. Okay. Add existing. Oh, no. Create new. Yeah, this is new. Okay, so. Freedom is fun. Exclamation point. Why not? They don't give you the ability in this particular program, to, and they limit your fonts too. What the heck is it? It's really weird fonts that they've got a choice of. Did I see Bengoet? That's the font I haven't heard of in a while. It's very hard to like stop on a font. It like just moves fast yourself. Crack House. Crime Wave. I like that one. Well, let's see what happens if I say this. There it is. I should be able, yeah. I don't know. It has to be select font. $96, okay. All right. I have this space right here, and I'm trying to create a space. I don't want Helvetica to be my font. I wanted it something weird, like this. Different. Yeah. Freedom is fun. Select font. Let me take that up to 64. There we go. I don't know how I got the other ones to be centered at all. Select font. Writing system. No, any. Italic. Font. Okay. Pardon me for doing this. Let's see. Filters. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with anything. So, oh, I know what I did. Forgive me. What I did was select font. Properties. They're unsaved. Do you want to keep them? Save. Yeah. You can't center it, but what you could do is manually center it, which is weird. So freedom is fun. All right, we got that out of the way. It took a while. And of course, my seat decided to fall down while that happened. Anyway, we need a little like pick me up or something here. You know, I don't know. Get going.
ROCKFLUX Live.
That was not a pick me up. So anyway, what I was thinking about, I'll just show you a couple of pictures that, here's the title card for the day. Before bloatware and the corporatocracy. And that's why I was saying the title of the show today was Once Upon a Time. Okay? And my first chat was happiness. Also, this time of year, this is my grow room. Okay? So you've seen a picture before of this, and that thing dangling down and from the next to the light is fly paper. Yeah, they still make that stuff, and it's still the best thing you can get. But anyway, this is just a little porch I have, and overgrown outside of the porch window, which will be, will be cleared up in another month once those leaves fall off. Those are like all my, it's an overgrown grapevine, which just didn't yield any grapes, by the way. I think it's a grapevine. But in any event, this room here on the right is catnip. To the left of it is some cilantro. I put some new cilantro seeds in there, so hopefully as this old cilantro withers away, some new stuff will come up. The next one over is lettuce, which should be obvious. And then the one to the left of it is kale. And then I have some other stuff growing as well. And this is kind of the stuff I do, and I talk about, I mention this in my book sometimes, but I mention it on the show that this is indoor growing and you can do this. And those are just grow lights. They're LEDs. They hardly use any electricity. My electric bill isn't like out the roof. It's hardly noticeable. It's LED lights. And like I say, this is hardly even a back porch. It's almost just the walkway from my kitchen that goes to my backyard. But I extended a little shelf out there and I put some stuff on it. And when it gets really cold in the winter, I have one of those little radiator heaters, those oil-filled, heater type things that I keep at the lowest possible setting just to keep the room from getting too cold. And I'm just growing greens, things that are cold tolerant, more or less. Catnip. I've had a cat. This is my new catnip plant. I had a catnip plant there that unfortunately, just like kind of fell apart this year. But I had that catnip plant for like 5 years. And I was pulling leaves off that every day, giving it to my cat. My cat was really digging it. But, 5 years from one plant. I don't know what happened. So I put some fresh soil in there, and I don't know. I try not to overwater it so it doesn't get root rot. That sounds like something that Scooby-Doo would say. Root rot. The king of pop culture, man. I got a line on everything when my mind is. So these are the kind of things you can do. So, it's kind of funny, but assuming that this kale plant kind of blooms out a little bit more. My nose is itchy too. Forgive me. Yeah.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
What do you expect?
Did you accidentally inject yourself with some kind of psychotropic agent?
But what I'm getting at is, if that lettuce plant, that's a big enough pot. And those are bigger than you think, actually. They're fairly big pots. They're not small planters. So if that lettuce actually gets, 3 or 4 times its size, I'll be able to pull a leaf off of there every other day or so. And all you need is one leaf in a sandwich because they're big leaves. And it's the same with kale, So I'm kind of hoping with that. And these are the kind of things you can do. And as far as herbs, you can't see here, but in this closet I have off to the left of this, and I'll show it at some point. But it's just a pile of dirt right now. But I planted some oregano, parsley, some cat grass, which is growing, which is another thing that the cats like. And, it's like, because, cat food's expensive and cat treats are expensive, and they like this natural stuff. And I even put a couple radishes in a planter just to see if I can get 4 or 5 radishes out, And the idea is that, so this is realistic stuff that you can do, and it's kind of semi-fun. I mean, it might not be fun to you, but I don't know. It's low maintenance. I mean, all you do is water these things every other day or so. It's not a big deal. You plant a seed and it grows. That's my grow room. One of the other features, I wasn't going to do it every day, but since I had it set up, I just thought I'd do it. This is an album, a very obscure album for unless you're a Beach Boys fan, and it truly is an album because you can see the disc right there. This is an album called Holland, and I believe in this album, when I had this, I no longer have a physical. I lost all my stuff. Like I said, I've had some bad luck. I moved around a lot. I've had things taken away from me, and the last place where I stored a lot of my stuff, there was this hoarding guy who was lease purchasing the property, who literally somehow, well, it's just hard to describe how a human being can destroy property to a point where nothing is salvageable. But if you've ever watched one of those shows, Hoarders or something like that, yeah, this was worse than that. This was the worst I've ever seen. Okay. They went in with like hazmat suits and it took them like 2 weeks and it cost like 10 grand to get the place to a point where it's still, the building was still like, ended up selling for next to nothing. Be that as it may, I used to have this album, and I believe when I had first purchased the record, that included in the jacket was a 45, like a single that had like something extra on it. It was like an upbeat, like more traditional-ish Beach Boys type of song. But this was kind of Brian Wilson. I mean, there's 1 or 2 tracks on there that just sound Beach Boy-y, you know, if there's such a terminology. But this was like, you know, true Brian Wilson. What, like when you listen to Surf's Up, like that's another album that if you're into the Beach Boy, if you're thinking, let's go surfing now, everybody's, you know, no. Or help me Rhonda, help me Rhonda, right? No. California Girls, you know, that's all good stuff for parties and stuff like that. But no, when you're talking about Surf's Up, you know, that's like real Brian Wilson, heavy produced, like over, you know, like, you know, it's wall of sound stuff. Like, you know, I mean, it's intense. Holland wasn't so much like on the level of Surf's Up, but there was a couple of good tracks in there that, you know, it's worth checking out. I'll just turn you on to some of these obscure things from time to time, just because, you know, if you're anything like me, I have like 10,000 digital tracks or something ridiculous like that. But, you know, every now and then I'm just looking for something different. I know it's hard to describe. You say 10,000. But, you know, so I recently listened to Holland the other day. I had Echo Dot play it for me. And, you know, it was interesting to hear. And there's a couple of decent songs on it. So, like I say, from time to time, I'll present you with something like this on this show. And that's today's feature. All right. And so we saw the Grow Room. This is some other stuff I do. You know, like I say, it's...
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
That's my show. This is the kind of stuff I spend my time on, you know, whatever. And so, you know, that's that. And yesterday we talked about the CME, and I see Freedom is Fun wants to hang out way at the top, which we don't want it to do. So we're no longer interested in news. We saw the Earth View and the CME we know about. So, bloatware and the corporatocracy, right? And Freedom is Fun, and of course, Happiness and Once Upon a Time. And yeah, Once Upon a Time, you know, you didn't have bloatware. Once upon a time, you had, and actually before Mac OS 9.2, you know, let's go back to like Mac, you know, 8, before they even called it OS. You know, that was like a big deal when they added the OS to the startup screen. It used to just be like, you know, the Mac thing would come up and it would be like version 8 or something like that. But Mac OS version 9.2 was a gift by the team at Apple. This came out in the late 90s, more or less. And what it was all of the Mac people, and I guess Jobs made a deal with them or let them do this. It was all the things that they had planned to put out in the future for for System 9. Because X was a total Steve Jobs thing. You know, he wanted to move over to this like Linux type of, you know, based on his other project, right? His education machines, those cubes that he made, whatever they were called. The heck was that called? Can't even think of it. You know what I'm talking about. And what was really nice is this was a really solid, sound, stable system. And in it, and I'm using it right now. In fact, over here where, whenever I play any of this kind of stuff.
Attention, people of Earth, I have an important announcement to make.
That's all. I'm playing that on the G5. And yesterday or 2 days ago, I was playing the piano, like a MIDI piano. And I was using GarageBand on there. And I have Claris Homepage, which was an old Mac OS 9. It was actually an Apple software program they discontinued. But I still have a copy of it because I had the box and the CD. And like I've also say, I purchased the software for Adobe Photoshop and Adobe InDesign, and I have the box and the CD, much to their chagrin. And those programs work just fine. And there's also an iDVD. I have a DVD player. I could record DVDs and CDs on this old G5. I just hope it stays alive, It's like doesn't crash on me. Because it's a great computer. Even though, I know, my nose is ridiculously itchy today. I'm feeling slightly better than I was before. It's just weird. It was like a slight headache, and I just wasn't feeling up to snuff. Which is a weird word. Anyway, so I'm going to take my remainder of coffee in my carafe and see if I could put the rest of it in here without overflowing. I can never do this. It wants to take it all the way up to the top. But it gives you that last little burst of at least warm. Before the coffee turns entirely cold. It's a human show. This is under people and blogs. I think it's blogs. I don't think they use the word vlog, but I call it a webcast. I'm on the podcast index. But I don't have I don't have a separate RSS feed, and I'm not sure. And if there is some random person that watches this later on, there's nobody watching right now, but I know that. But people do watch later on. Is there a way that you can use YouTube as an RSS feed? Because I know YouTube has podcasting. Because they have I've seen they have their various rows of things, like their news rows, recommended rows, music, right? I've seen a thing that says podcasts. So the question is, does YouTube or Google allow you to use, set this up as an RSS feed so that this webcast podcast can just be a podcast? The visuals aren't that important. And a person could always go, if they're obsessed with seeing a particular visual, they could just go to YouTube and look at it. But then again, you could just listen, have your smartphone in your pocket with YouTube on and your earbuds or whatever you're using and listen to this show. So I think one or two people do that. But what I'm getting at is if there is a way of making it a podcast, it would give me a better way of having it indexed to a wider audience. And that's what the RSS feed thing is all about. So it's not just YouTube available. Right now I'm making this feed linked on a lot of social media sites so that people from various places know it exists and can access it. But I don't want to be totally restricted, to one server. Put it that way. But yeah, anyway, before bloatware and the corporatocracy, And I always talk about this, and, some people, they get into this. It's like, they think you're talking about like the good old days type of thing. I mean, it's hard to call the 90s the good old days, but the 90s were, in my mind, were the good old days, because it was right before everything kind of all fell down. And not only, as I talk about this socioeconomic geopolitics, but particularly socioeconomic when it comes to the former United States, what's happened in this country, definitely after the 90s, socioeconomically, this country really started to fall apart, it seems. But, the internet, the 90s, at least I would say from the mid 90s to into 2000 were the golden years of the internet. Even though you had the so-called .com crash, that was more of a stock thing, than it was for people in general, because the internet was growing right through the .com crash was like the biggest growth of the internet, which is an interesting thing to think about, and why a lot of times, you don't necessarily, another reason not to get obsessed with the news and all that stuff and have that stuff bring you down. Because, those invested in certain things, cyclically, it's like real estate market in 2008, and it's like what's going on right now. We're on the verge of some kind of crash. A lot of pundits and people in the know, billionaires, I've been watching some billionaires talking on various interviews on YouTube, etc. And there's a lot of talk about, different things, kind of a reshuffling and some crashes that may or may not happen. Everything from real estate to precious metals to the various cryptocurrencies and all that kind of stuff. But unless you're highly invested in that, or invested in one particular thing where you can, so-called lose your shirt or whatever, for the general public, these things don't necessarily signal, some kind of the ultimate tragedy, You just have to look out. And that's what guys like me do. I mean, that's what, let me just turn this, my books back here between Codex and the new one, which is also up here, or there it is. Then what? That people like me and others are trying to, sound the alarm about certain things. But at the same time, like I've just added there, where I go, you don't know what you don't know, and everything you know is wrong, and it's game over. It's also, hey, freedom is fun, man. And you just have to find your way through this sea of, basically insanity, right?
This is insane. This is insane. This is insane. This is insane.
And I mean, otherwise it's going to be...
This is a nightmare. It must be a...
So it's going to end up to being a nightmare for you, and you don't want that to happen. And, as this guy says...
Why are you telling us this?
Because I'm trying to help you out, buddy. You know what I mean? I'm trying to help you out. It's for your own good. Listen. Listen and learn, my friend. Listen and learn.
ROCKFLUX Live.
So, whatever happens, whatever comes down the pike, doesn't signal the end for everyone. And certainly not for me, so that, in the instance of like, and I've shown in my book the other day, it's like, I'm no prepper. I'm, but, I do have a Where is it? There it is. I do have a pantry. See that? And so do you, I'm sure. And you can see I have a plant there, which is actually one of my, I showed this yesterday. It's one of my plants that you're actually seeing live. But the point is, no, the food you eat, if there's stuff you like, keep it in your pantry, or keep it in your cupboards, your cabinets. Don't have them empty. These people that save sacks of rice and these big 5-gallon tubs of whatever the heck, I don't know what they're buying. MREs, meals ready to eat type of stuff. It's like, no. Just make sure you have the food you eat around. And a lot of the stuff you have in your cabinets isn't refrigerated, so it's, it's good for months or whatever. So, no. So, I don't worry about stuff like that. And I also, in the summertime, this summer, I was just talking to somebody yesterday because I had this red lettuce, this like real curly lettuce that grew early on. Like in June-ish. And I was giving it away by the bagful to a friend of mine and a couple other people, neighbors. And consuming, I was eating salads every day, practically. And if not a salad, I was just making sandwiches and stuff with it. And so half the year, I plant a few seeds in the backyard, and I'm eating like salads and peppers, tomatoes, having all these herbs. I've got potatoes I still haven't pulled out of the ground. I had carrots. So I'm getting all that basically free food. It is basically like free food because we had a good bit of rain this year, so I had the hose set up. But there was I could probably count on my hands the number of times over the course of the entire summer that I actually watered my garden. Because we got a fairly decent amount of rain and do in this climate area. Plus I have rain catchment on my garage. Just like an old plastic garbage, cans, containers. Because it's not like I'm drinking the water. It's for plants. So, I just took a thing and put a little spigot on the bottom of it. The water comes off the garage. It goes in there, fills it up, and I've got 30 gallons of water to water my plants with when it's a dry day. So I didn't have to turn on the hose. And, everything grew fine. And I had flowers, and there was a lot of honeybees and everything back there. It was great. And then I sit there and soak up the sun. I took a vitamin D today, D3 pill. This is the first day I did that because I haven't had, it's been, vitamin D will last for a while, but it's finally reaching that point where even if it's a sunny day, you're not going to get that intensity of that vitamin now. We're in the season. Once you get into the October country, it was a Ray Bradbury book, I think. Once you're in October to through March and stuff, sunny or not, it's just you're not getting that UVB vitamin D3 stuff from it. So you got to get it you have to get it either from some kind of supplement that is absorbed. And remember, absorption is the key whenever you're taking anything. And I've got to do a little research today, in fact, on that, because I've just been recently kind of turned on to this absorption concept. Because there were certain things I didn't know about. And I was just assuming that I was taking turmeric and pepper, and that's all I needed to do. But I found out it actually likes to have some like fat with it. So it's like turmeric and black pepper, yeah, but you might want to put some extra virgin olive oil on there. And it even likes to be heated up. So you're better off to put turmeric, black pepper into some kind of stew or a soup. It's the same with tomatoes. The lycopene you get out of a tomato is actually intensified when it's heated up. So, so actually making a homemade sauce with your tomatoes and stuff like that is actually, you're getting a little bit more of that vitamin. But at the same token, something like broccoli, these people steam broccoli, and put broccoli in their in soups and stuff. If you cook that too long, you basically take most of the nutrients out of it. So it's a lot of interesting things you've got to know. So the key thing is, don't just, it sounds crude, but don't piss away your vitamins, because that's in effect what happens, particularly with vitamin C. There's a lot of people out there just like taking vitamin C like it's a wonder drug. But the problem is that's coming right out, through your system, through your urine, So you want to make sure that you have absorption of whatever nutrient, vitamins, minerals, blah, 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 into your body. And you got to do your due diligence and research on that, or talk to a nutritionist. A lot of doctors, will tell you outright that at medical school, they don't spend an awful lot of time on nutrition. I mean, I hate to say it, but they're pill pushers, they cut you, they prescribe things. They either use the knife or they give you a prescription. And there's some really good surgeons out there, and I've been fortunate enough to know a couple. But there's an awful lot of doctors who are just pill pushers. There's a solution to any problem is a pill. So a nutritionist is a whole nother thing. And you want to find somebody who's certified and all that kind of stuff, proper thing. But yeah, do your research on that, because these days, with all this stuff floating around, there's crazy stuff floating around. And all of these revelations now, with, what happened over in Asia with this thing that now seems to be like even DARPA was involved like 3 years ago or something, or at least was on the memo. That's scary stuff. So, you got to take care of yourself, so make sure you know what you're eating, boost your immune system, and make sure you're not just taking some, supplement or listening to some YouTube person, right? Make sure you go and you get, you talk to a nutritionist or a doctor, right? And that's why, like I say, I'm not one of those YouTube persons I'm telling you to seek professional advice. Excuse me. My teeth are starting to bother me. I just been eating a lot of like ice cream. It's just been like a go-to thing. Almost like an addiction. Right? So I have to get off of that kick. I stopped drinking for no known reason, just because nobody was coming around to drink. And I just didn't feel like, I was having a few beers at the bar, playing some music and doing that kind of thing for a while. But then it, just got boring sitting there. And, it's like the, I drink alone with nobody else, George Thorogood tune. And I don't drink the colas. I have a coffee in the morning here, like a cup or two of coffee. But it's like I was getting into this ice cream kick. Now I eat food, but I'd have a hot soup and, I'd make this stew or something, which is really super healthy. But it's hot, and then just to like cleanse the palate, or for dessert, I was having like some ice cream or something like that. And I was trying to get the good, like a frozen yogurt, low fat frozen yogurt that had the culture in it, that type of stuff or whatever. But, you're still playing a game, So I got to get off of that kick, which I probably will this week. You know, I just have to say goodbye to my ice cream, my treats. You know, it was fun while it lasted. Tasted good. You know, it's quick and easy. I'll just get back to eating a kosher dill for dessert, for a treat. You know, good kosher dill's hard to find. I have some, and I found a place that has authentic kosher dill pickles that really, have that New York deli taste. But be that as it may, yeah, you got to take care of yourself. You got to eat healthy because you don't know what's coming down the pike. So before bloatware and a corporatocracy. But the 90s are over. So, the good old days, freedom is fun, happiness, blah, blah, blah. Once upon a time, these are great stories to tell and to reminisce. And yeah, if somebody does come by, you could sit down, have a few beers and reminisce about the good old days. But that's fun, that's fun. Storytelling's part of the human experience. We are storytellers, right? I mean, that's why entertainment is such a big thing. It's part of our makeup. If you think about it, we're storytellers, right? Now, some more so than others. Some just like to hear a good story, right? But I mean, that's, humans are storytellers, are into stories. So, yeah, that's great. That's fun. But, let's talk about it. So, if you want to be happy, for the rest of your life, if you want to be happy, you have to seek out happiness. It's like life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness. And, and I always say it's acceptance. You have to accept. You can't be in denial. Like, there's too many people out there in denial that there's this thing called bloatware, right? And, it's the truth. I mean, otherwise, the computer I have, that's giving you those sound effects, this G5, which works fully functional, but I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that it just keeps functioning for another, I hope it will function for a couple more years. There's nothing wrong with that computer other than that, Apple wanted to sell more more computers. It's the same with the iPhone. I mean, like I said, my iPhone here, pretty much, I mean, the top is different, they widened the screen and did this thing and they put that bump of a camera on the back. But this is an iPhone 6. But, from the 6 to the 13, isn't an awful lot difference. And, they did some kind of update here. I don't have the latest operating system on it, but there was something came down that I had to update this. And, there's a lot of apps. I could turn this thing on and, there's apps on here, that work. So, why should I buy a new iPhone? Why do I need all these new computers? It's like this one that I'm pointing at right now here, this computer, which is my main computer, which is great, is getting old. You think the G5 is old. Well, this thing, is newer, but is old. The G5 is ancient and still works. This computer is newer, but it's about 6 years old, maybe something like that. I don't know, something close to it. And it's actually older than that. To be honest with you, I think it's 9 years old. Let me double check about this Mac. Sometimes this messes my CPU up. This is late 2012. Yeah, this is late 2012. It's 9 years old. So the G5 is probably almost 20 years old, or early 2000s, 15 or more. So, but why? It's like a car. People used to have a car and they'd fix their car or update their car. Like I used to say, the biggest thing I used to say, appliances for the longest times, washers, dryers, refrigerators, things of that sort, radios. People used to fix have TVs. They would just do this stuff. They would just replace their tubes, Seems kind of antiquated and ridiculous, compared to a solid state thing. But the point was, that's what happened. If your TV went on the blink, TV repairman guy came with his briefcase that had all these various tubes in it. And he looked around and found a tube that it's got a notification that it's garbage day. Yeah, I know that. My garbage is out there. Hopefully it got all picked up. So, there's no reason why we can't create things other than the corporatocracy, the idea of and Moore's Law was never a part of this thing. I can't talk. The idea that every 18 months or 2 years, the chips would shrink, but also part of that was that the price would shrink. Well, that hasn't happened. I've seen some things where, the cost of some of these phones, these smartphones, and the cost of some of these newer computers are way, way, way higher than adjusted for inflation would be for what I paid at the time. So Moore's Law is out the window. Besides, you can't, we've already almost reached the singularity in that kind of, in that department. Apple's got its new A something chip, right? They're not using Intel anymore, primarily. But yeah, it's a whole new world, and it's bloatware. And so the reason your computer doesn't work is they just keep adding all this extra stuff that's unnecessary. I mean, look at my screen, it's like, it's crazy. I got all these words floating all over it, and, and I pop up these title cards and my grow room and all that stuff. This is neat stuff. There aren't many people on YouTube doing this kind of stuff. People have they pay for these services. So they have that thing where they shrink their face down and they show you what they're surfing, right? Or they use one of those, they do an interview and they're going back and forth with somebody through one of those things. But you don't see a lot of people with this kind of complexity, in a set like this and the live on air thing and all that. But that's fun. This machine is capable of doing it. And there's no reason for me to have to spend $5,000 to buy a comparable setup, to do what I'm doing now. If I wanted to replace these two computers, the computer that allows me, to do this and the computer that allows me to do the current visual here, we're talking about 10 grand, right? 10 grand. Really, maybe more. And why? When this stuff works. So that's bloatware, and that's the corporatocracy. And like we saw with the news earlier on in the day, it's all one big diversion, from what they're trying to do. And we're just into crazy times. But here's the thing I wanted to talk about, and why I posted happiness in my chat originally, and why I have added freedom is fun to my text on my page, my screen, and saying, because, once upon a time, it was great. You had Mac OS 9.2 or even Windows XP, which, like I say, I think I saw some weird thing, like they're coming out with a new Windows XP, but it might be a gag. All right. But I don't know. Like a modern version of XP. We'll see. Not that I care, but yeah, there was this time when it was fun in the late 90s into the early 2000s when everything was new and it was like the classic Steve Jobs, one more thing and all that stuff. And that's how, that was the birth of the smartphone and, iTunes, MP3s and all these things that have become a part of so much a part of everyone's life, the digital world we live in right now, 20 years later, 15 years later. But the past is the past, and you have to live in the present. So you have to find a way to, where freedom is fun for you, despite what's going on out there. And a lot of people get overwhelmed and are still obsessed with watching the news. And the news is just one big diversion, all right? It's deflection away from reality. It's like today's news when I showed you, everything on here, okay, from this oil spill, that's not news, that's old news, and it's the year 2021. They should figure out there are techniques they have that they could clean that up quickly. Schumer talking about the debt ceiling, that's old news, all right? This guy, that they're talking about, this woman that was apparently, killed or something like that. Like I said, there's, 19, 20,000 people a year, die from homicides in the U.S., most of which aren't solved. And so why do they pick on this one story and they're making it simple? Because it's something that they can turn into some kind of episodic, binge watchable, keep you tuned in during the commercials and deflect you away from the 77 warplanes China sent to Taiwan, what's going on in South America, Venezuela, what's going on over the African continent. Anybody talking about South Africa? Remember just like a couple of months ago, it was like complete mayhem, right? Complete mayhem. Has anyone followed up on that? No, right? And then, of course, like I say, there's this thing, that still continues that now seems to have been, people have known about for 3 years now. So that whole thing is getting fishy, right? And it's like, so they're diverting us with these old stories and they're calling them news. It's like, yeah, it's a tragedy, homicides are tragedies, but there's 20,000 a year. Don't just pick one person out of the blue. What about the other people, right? And why are there so many unsolved ones? You guys are dropping the ball if the majority of homicides are unsolved in the U.S. And if oil spills, come on, man, you could figure that out. I know they can because I've seen technologies they have. They have things they can like put on the water that like it immediately like absorbs these things and turns it into some kind of like bubble, like particles and stuff that they could like instantly scoop up and stuff. There's all kinds of technology. It's the year 2021. I have to say that 10 times every show practically. It's like people are acting like it's the 1980s. And and the weirdest thing about it is the people who are acting like it's the 1980s are only in their 20s or 30s, so they weren't even alive then. Like it's as if the people alive today don't know they're living in the future, what we call the future. and that there's so much tech to do all these things. It's a carbon-based civilization. We're a carbon-based life form. It's a carbon-based planet. All right. You know, there are solutions for all of these problems. You know, especially, you know, you think about it. You got Silicon Valley out there, right? High tech. You get guys like Elon Musk worrying about trying to send somebody to Mars. You know, you think you'd put your team on the oil spill, right? I mean, that's what I would do if I was a CEO of like a Silicon Valley, multi-billion-dollar Silicon Valley company, right? What about Apple, right? They're so worried about their fall line and getting their holiday phones, getting ready for the October Mac, you know, showcase coming up, right? Well, why don't you just put one of your crack teams, right, of brilliant minds and have that oil spill cleaned up in like 7 days, right? See, what really gets me is, you know, and I hate to toot my own horn, but, you know, I ended up doing it all the time because it's a factual thing, and anybody who's known me over the years understands it. I was a turnaround guy, all right? Do you know what that means? It's like when you called a guy like me into a situation, you usually had no other choice. In other words, the business was basically bankrupt. The business was failing. And I always came in and turned the business around, right? And sometimes it was messy, you know. There were situations I came into a business where there were 16 people and I had to let 16 people go. It's not the nicest thing in the world to do, right? But they were basically useless people, didn't know what they were doing, and they were bringing the company down. I was hired by the company to turn the company around, right? And I've done that on a number of instances. Okay. And the idea is you sit down at a table, you find out who are the people that, you know, that know what they're doing, and you bring in some other experts, and you sit down at a table, right? And you discuss the problem, and you come up with solutions to that problem. It's no different than somebody trying to solve a crime, right? You see these crime shows where they have these, you know, whiteboards, you know, and, you know, or where they're, you know, trying to figure out who done it, you know, type of thing. The only problem is in the real world, they don't really solve that many crimes, right? Like I say, most homicides go unsolved. But the fact of the matter is there are people out there like me who come in and who basically direct teams to figure out, let's figure this out, right? And a lot of people need that because they're in, you know, they need the person that's willing to like push the issue. Let's solve that problem, okay? Right? And not worry so much about whether you like me or not at that particular instance, you know? So it's like, yeah, okay, bring me over to, you know, SoCal. And I'll tell the team that I put together, I'm going to say, look, I'm not here for you to like me or not like me. I'm here to clean up this oil spill, and I want it cleaned up by next week. All right? I want people swimming on the beach. And people be like, oh, it's impossible. It can't be done. This will take years and there'll still be residue and blah, blah. And I'm saying that is unacceptable. You're fired. Get out of here. That's not the attitude I want. And I'll hire 10 more people till I get the people in there that are going to use their brains, put their time in. And I'll pay you very well. All right? And there might be some sleepless nights, but we're going to solve the problem. Hey, Apple, you $1 trillion company. Hey, Elon Musk, right? You know, hey, Facebook, right? You know, all you companies out there. Solve the problem. It's right in your backyard, this oil spill. Figure it out. Just figure it out, man. You got the brains. What are you doing? What are you worried about going to Starbucks on your campus? Right? Or bringing your pet to work? Solve the problem. And that's the thing we have now. We don't solve problems, you know? Everything we have is, there's no other way to say it. It's like half-assed. It's like our computers. They're half-assed. It's like bloatware, but it's like half-assed bloatware. You know these voice assistants we have, these personal assistants, and I have them. I have 2 of them, right? They're half-assed. I know the state of GPT-3, I know the state of AI, what algorithms can do and how they can access stuff in the clouds, in the cloud, depending on, their particular access to whatever database they're accessing for their information. But it's like, yeah, they got the conversational thing down and they've got the speech to text or text to speech and all that kind of stuff. But they're not being utilized to their full potential. One will be utilized in a certain way. Another one will be utilized. But it's like whatever. And then someone's saying, oh, well, this is, it has to do with patents and whatever. It's like, no, there's a lot of open source involved in this AI stuff. In fact, this program I'm using right now is an open source program that's being, worked on by all the people like me, everybody who's using it, right? We're all testing it, reporting on it, finding flaws, and stuff like that. Open source is still alive and well in this world, and it's involved in AI, all right, and computing. And so problem solving is what it's all about, so that was the whole idea. Before bloatware and the corporatocracy, problem solving is what it was all about. So solve some problems. Do these people know how to solve problems? That's the question. Right? Or are they just getting 6 and 7 figures sitting around drinking Starbucks coffee on campus, right? They don't go to an office building anymore. They work on a campus. The Peter Pan culture, right? I'm never going to grow up. Sad. So that's reality. That's my rant on that. But, that's not meant to be a downer, even though somebody was on and then they left. That's not a downer. The idea is freedom is fun. Happiness is possible. You just have to basically, pursue it. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And how do you do that? You pursue life by either growing food or keeping your, get my book, I talk about, keep food in your pantry, People talk about these supply chain disruptions that are already around. We have hyperinflation right now. These are other things that they're diverting with the so-called news, which is like old news, right? Or like repetitive, cyclical, recycled news, right? In other words, the name has changed, right? But the story is the same, right? A person disappears, it's a tragedy, and believe me, I have empathy for these people. But the story's changed. The name's changed, but the story's the same. It's the same with this, this constant year. Every year, Congress is always talking about the debt ceiling or about, all that kind. It's like, come on, man. It's the same story. It's just a different year and a different candidate or a different politician or a different Congress, different political party. Same old stories. Same old stories. Same with these oil spills, right? You know, these things cyclically happen. You know, we had the BP thing in the Gulf. You know, I talked yesterday about the real old one, the Exxon Valdez. But, you know, these things go on. They happen. It's going to happen. We're a carbon-based civilization. I don't care what anybody says. That's the way it is. You know, they talk about an infrastructure bill, and maybe that's one of the other reasons why they're dragging their feet on it, is they don't understand. The only way that you can use heavy equipment in order to fix the infrastructure in the U.S., to use heavy equipment, right, is that stuff runs on like diesel and, you know, carbon-based fuels. So you're not going to be, you know, raising cranes and girders and digging with, you know, have front end loaders and skid steers and excavators and these giant trucks, dump trucks, bulldozers, and all that stuff, fixing infrastructure. These things don't run on electricity. Okay? Sorry. They don't. And most of these infrastructure repairs and these bridges out in the middle of nowhere, or they want to build high-speed lines or fix rail lines out in the boondocks, right? The areas where they need repairs or need to be strengthened up because of high winds and storms and things like that. Well, they have no access. You know, that's heavy equipment that runs on carbon-based fuels. In fact, it's crazy, you know, but there's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars out of that budget spent on fuel, on carbon-based fuel. I don't even think these young people in Congress, you know, they're even aware of that. You know, that's how crazy it is. You know, why would some congresswoman from New York City, right, or Washington, D.C., right, some urban, you know, candidate, right, have any concept of what an excavator is or a uke? Do you think that they've ever even seen anything like that? You know, the only time they've ever seen a dump truck or a bulldozer is maybe a toy that their child might have had. Right? They have no idea. They don't know that the trucks that they use to fix the infrastructure, the tires, are bigger than a person. Okay? They don't even know that. Right? It's like farming. It's like this it's like big pharma. You know, the machinery used to farm, like people think, oh, we're going to bring in these migrant workers and they'll, you know, help us with food. Every year, more and more farming equipment is automated. There's like one person sitting in the cab, and these things are huge, giant harvesters. You know, and they just run along and they've got GPS systems in them and all this kind of stuff. And they like run two or three of them run in a row. It's like 3 people can like do, you know, 100 acres. And that's the sad part about it is these academics who have spent their entire life, you know, within these hallowed halls on campuses, and have come from Boston, New York, Chicago, right, L.A., they have no idea of how things are run, right? And they're talking about a $3 billion or $2 trillion or $3 trillion, $2 trillion infrastructure bill or this kind of stuff. We're going to build a high-speed rail line and fix 20,000 bridges and roads. And what do you think you use? You know, I've done shows on this. I don't want to get off on, you know, on just getting crazy about that because, it's ridiculous. But, it is what it is. And so even in the case of me, it's repetitive. What are you going to do? It's repetitive. Lava lamp. Unload image when not showing. So let's see. Okay. It's such a tiny image that I think I see if I keep it loading. You see the lava lamp above the earth on the screen? Let's see if it keeps going. I don't know if that button I did was the right thing to do or not. I know the VU, I'm going to test it with the lava lamp, and then I'll test it with the VU. Yeah, so back to happiness and freedom is fun. I was just thinking, that if you pursue happiness, there's, do you really have to be caught up in all of this craziness? Ignorance is bliss sometimes. You've heard that phrase. And of course, Joseph Campbell had the great line, follow your bliss, which was a very profound statement. But the idea is that if you don't watch this so-called news, which like I said, isn't news, it's just rehashed stuff. The names have been changed, but, the events are the same. It's just the same stuff, recycled. And it's all diverting you away from reality. Well, I don't have TV, okay? So I can't even turn it on if I wanted to. Right? I mean, I have, they have over-the-air TV now, still. So, and I happen to be in an area where I can, if I wanted to, it would, I can digitally pick up like an NBC affiliate or something. So I guess if there was some weird thing went on and I have this thing back here, let me see, get rid of the title card, the Jackery, I could hook that up to my television, my little HD TV. That's why I sometimes stare at the ceiling, because I have like a TV mounted to the wall there, a little one. And I could plug this thing into that because, remember, everything's this Energy Star stuff. So these TVs today, they use hardly any electricity at all. Low wattage, it's just not. So I could plug the TV into the Jackery, which you could get at Great Solar Stuff if you wanted to, if you cared. Support the show. And I'd be able to pick up over the air, assuming that TV's got, is broadcasting, they've got their transmitter hooked up to some kind of, backup generator. And I could watch TV. To find out what's going on, in a case of some kind of emergency or something weird like that. But, barring that, and that thing didn't work. So the lava lamp experiment, it stopped. So now it started again. So the idea is, what I'm trying to get at is that if you don't watch the news, if you get out of social media and you just live your life, right? Then freedom is fun. I was talking to somebody, I talk to them often, but I know somebody looking for a job who's been interviewing jobs, because everybody's interviewing jobs now because people are working out of their homes, that's the new thing, I watched a guy in the UK yesterday, but there's another guy in New York that does it too, where they walk around, various business districts. This guy in the UK was in like Coventry or something like that. Was it Coventry? Yeah, I think it was in Coventry, England. Anyway, and he was just showing all the empty storefronts, and he was talking about how much money was invested, in the area to like revitalize it, etc. But apart from there being these like nice fountains and walkways and stuff like that, still, everywhere you looked, there was an empty storefront. And when you got close to it, it was all hollowed out. It was like right down to the walls. So it wasn't like there was nothing there. It wasn't a ghost town, but it was just a shell of what it used to be. And that's the future. It's not coming back. You're not, in other words, this one guy yesterday, I swear on the walk, he must have showed 100 empty in this city center. Maybe not 100, but at least 50. It had to be more than 50, though. It could have been as many as 100, but at least 50 some shops. And some of them were big department stores, but, a lot were just, shops. But way over 50. And they're gone, man. They're gone. They're not coming back. And New York's the same way. It's like, people say, oh, there's New York, there's activity. And yeah, there's people walking around the streets, there's millions and millions of people live in New York. I lived in New York. I lived and worked in New York. I know, they talk about people, a million people leave New York. Well, that's like a drop in the bucket, There's always going to be people in New York City, and there's always going to be people that aren't going to move out of New York City, But the idea is that when you walk the streets of places that used to be shop after shop after shop or department store or businesses or this, that, the other, they're not there and they're not coming back. That's the nature of things, right? So, it's a whole new dynamic, that's occurring right now. And so people are working from their homes and they're working, from their computers. So they're communicating like this, you and I, right? And at the same time, excuse me, I'm doing a couple things while I do this. But it's not going to be, in other words, the world has changed. Society has changed. Western civilization is over. The Western civilization that we've come to know just no longer exists. And that's just, it's like I said earlier, it's something you have to come to acceptance on. And so you have to pursue your happiness, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and, and be free. Freedom is fun. You have to pursue that your way. And if that means getting a job that you're telecommuting or whatever you want to call it, they call it all these different things now, that's fine. If you're working out of the house, there's a lot more people who are actually doing like teaching their kids. People are wondering what I'm doing. I don't know if this is etiquette or not. But if you can't tell what I'm doing, that's good. I just had to I'm trimming my nails. This is like, it's kind of, I guess it would be embarrassing to somebody else, but the heck with it. What am I supposed to do? This has been bothering me for 2 days.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And I got to do it now. Because after this is done, I've got to go feed the birds. It's daylight out there. It's supposed to rain today, so I'm going to be spending time up in the attic. And I don't know the next time that I'm going to be like clean like this to sit here and do this. So I'm just going to finish it off. Couple more to go, and then I'm done. But yeah, you've got to find a way to live and just do it, and it's simple. It's not complicated. They're trying to mess with your minds, man. They've got you preoccupied as if, it's Chicken Little, the sky's falling and all that stuff. And, for some people, if you're invested in certain certain markets, certain real estate areas, certain this, that, the other, yeah, it could be rough. It was rough for the people who were involved in like that countryside thing, back in 2008. But one of the funniest things about all of that stuff, and I kick myself for not doing it, is that at the time I had this condo down in Florida that I was renting, but I had the right of first refusal because I kind of had a feeling when I rented it that the owner was going to sell. Okay. Because the woman that was living in there was the daughter of somebody, and the place was a mess, and and it was like, I go, you know what, they're going to get rid of this thing. And so sure enough, after like a year or two, I didn't live there that long, the realtor called me and said, hey, you have the right of first refusal. This place is going up on the market, so we're calling you first because, if you want it, you've got the first right to purchase it. And I didn't realize at the time that was right at, I was thinking, well, the mortgage market, this, that, the other, I don't know, your interest rates, and what was my credit like at the time? I don't know if it was good or bad. I think it was pretty good. Whatever it was, I turned it down because I thought I didn't want to go through one of these massive, through the crazy mortgage stuff. Like I bought this house. It took 2 months to get, mortgages are a pain sometimes, for the average person. It's like paperwork. They just dig into everything. Well, every day it's something different. A week passes by, you think you gave them everything they want, then you get a call from whoever your like bank rep is, and they're saying, can you fax us over a paper of such and such and such and such? And you're like, come on, man. Didn't I give you enough information already? I'm not paying that much for the property. But anyway, I didn't take the place like an idiot. I could have bought this condo for like $50,000 at that time at really low interest, and they didn't even care. They weren't even going to call anybody. It was like that. That was that whole thing. And forgive me for having done that. It's called multitasking, Like it or not, deal with it. I'm glad that's done. Man, that was bothering me for like last night. And so I didn't do it, but I could have sold that condo probably for like several $100,000. I could have flipped that like a couple of years later, or kept it and had this condo, on the Gulf Coast. But anyway, be that as it, because it would have only been $50,000, so the cost on it. Not everybody lost out during that real estate crash. There were a lot of people that like got good deals and basically, and property and who, are living in those houses right now. It was just that they gave it to poor people who couldn't afford that, people bought these like $300,000 or $500,000 homes, and they couldn't afford it. They couldn't afford the mortgage, and they didn't check their credit. But like, I was going to buy that place for like $50,000. I mean, that's nothing. That's like a car payment type of thing. So yeah, I'd have had a condo down there. I could have rented out half the year, and the other half of the year went down myself, or let family members go down and vacay there. It's a resort town. So like 2 blocks from the beach, a couple blocks from the beach, the Gulf Coast. Well, anyway, walking distance. I used to walk to the beach from it. But what I'm trying to get at is that has nothing to do with anything. That's just Tony Caribbean's story. Is this idea that, despite the fact that I have off days and on days, like today I don't know where my head's at right now. I kind of feel okay right now. But, like when I woke up, I was like, I had a headache and, I felt like even though I slept pretty good, I don't know. I have to I got to turn the dehumidifier on in that bedroom, make sure I don't have any mold up there or something like that. It's damp right now. We're supposed to get rain today. And I have all the accoutrement to fix things. Like I got the Kills paint, the stuff and the mold killer and stuff. But it's like, I am tired. I was thinking about that this morning. Like last week, I did so much work in my attic, that was like...
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
This is just my vlog, whatever. That coffee is ice cold, literally colder than room temperature. It's like there's an ice cube in it. Impossible, but it's true. But I did so much bending, and fixing and, adjusting, doing all this stuff to try to waterproof this roof, that it was a week of, it was hell week. I was just beat, totally beat, right? And, so it's like, I'm at this point now, it's like, I just want to take it. I just want to take some time off, right? Just vacation. But I still have some work to do. I have to I have to take my ceiling and there's I don't know, it's like a 4x4, 4x5 area in my ceiling that I have some plastic over to previously have prevented any leaking from, if it did make it down, that it would be caught by that. But I have to put a tarp down over top of my bed and nightstand, get a ladder in there, rip down this plastic, replace some of these ceiling tiles, right? Make sure there's no mold up there. And if there is, put this treat it with this stuff that kills mold, and then paint this Kills paint that's goes over any kind of ceiling stains and is antimicrobial and all that kind of stuff, and then probably put plastic over it again, just, the next day after it dries, just in case, to have that extra barrier in case something crazy happens. So we're talking about a 2-day affair, total disruption of my bedroom. And I won't even be able to sleep in there because after the first, the day of painting, unless I do it at 8 a.m. in the morning, and for some reason it's a warm day and I can have the ceiling fan on and the window open and a fan circulating, that by the time I go to bed at night, it's dried up or something. And there's other areas and other things like that I have to do. The basement, I still have to do some touch-ups with some, my chimney and some concrete repointing work on some bricks and stuff like that, getting ready for the winter. Excuse me. But it's like I'm spent, and that's kind of, I think, the way I felt this morning when I got up. I'm like, man, I'm tired. But life's like that, and you just have to endeavor to persevere, as I say. And because once it's done, it is done. That's the important thing to keep in your mind. And I'm just sharing that, I go through this stuff too. I'm and it's like everybody does. We all do. And some mornings you just don't want to get out of bed, You're like, man, or you don't feel like doing this thing. You're like, oh, man, I'm burned out. I've been, working my ass off, But you got to do it, and you do it. And then when it's done, it's done. And then you look up and go, well, that ceiling's done, and that's fresh, and that's clean. Right? But getting there is a 2-day affair and a total disruption of everything and a freaking nightmare. So, that's just how it is. And in the meantime, I'm keeping this before bloatware and the corporatocracy. I repeat, it's the year 2021, and there should be better technology for all kinds of things like this. I mean, they should have some kind of thing you just like, you like flip it and it like ding, 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 and it replaces your roof. You know what I mean? Come on, it's the freaking future. I looked at something. There was a pint of some perfect sealant. I talked about this yesterday briefly. One pint of it cost $90. It's not like they don't have this stuff, right? But I would have to have bought like 4 or 5 pints and spent like $500, to like put this stuff down that would have like pretty much completely sealed the flooring above my second floor. Because my attic is like kind of a third floor, even though it's an attic. It was finished off at one point. But I have a flooring set up there. But I could have just sealed that thing off. But, it's like they've got all the stuff they have is overpriced. So you could end up spending thousands and thousands of dollars. A new roof now, like these metal roofs that cost next to nothing. Like I was at one of the box stores last week with a friend. And we were looking at these sheets of this metal roof. And they were like, I don't know, maybe $10 for like a big sheet. Like a sheet that was like 16, I don't know, definitely big enough to reach the whole length of like the stretch of my roof. But they were only maybe, 2 feet wide or something like that. But still, I don't have like a really giant. But they were like $10. And I'm going like, the contracting company wants to charge something like $20,000 to put a new metal roof on my, or not a new metal roof, but a metal roof on my roof, which is one of the easiest things to do because you basically just drill it right in. And I have a wooden plank roof underneath, and I've already done it on my greenhouse. You get these screws they have that have like a rubber washer gasket type of thing at the top of them. And they're pretty big, and they'll go through the metal and right into, deeply into the wood and, secure the thing there, right? And you overlap the metal roof over the other metal roof so it becomes this solid, very secure thing on your roof. And it just deflects the water right down. And I'm looking at them going, for probably about $500 or less, worth these metal sheets that they were just stacked. We could have bought them that day. I don't even know if I would have had to spend that much money. Maybe, maybe $600. I don't know. But if my roof wasn't so damn high, right? Because I'm thinking I probably will do it for my own garage because I could do it in one day on my own garage. Maybe 2 days, I don't know, but one day probably. Put a metal roof on because it's a garage. So I could just, on a step ladder, basically put these things on. So how does labor go from, if materials are $600 or even materials were $1,000, say, okay? Including some rental of some kind of like bucket truck or, or whatever, or a couple of guys, at $20 or $30 an hour for a couple hours, right? So say it was $1,000 or more dollars. How do you say it was $2,000. How does the contracting company get off charging you $20,000 to put on the roof when at most, including labor, it might have cost them $2,000, materials and labor and rental equipment or something? $18,000 profit? That's price gouging. That's as bad as the pint of this this sealant that for one pint was $90. With tax, you'd be looking at like close to $100. It's like where I'm around, it's like 6% tax or something like that. And it was probably 90 and change or something like that. So yeah, it's like $100 for a pint. I mean, a pint. I mean, it's not much bigger than, a little bit bigger than this. And so that's where, that's where these so-called ruling elite, and that's this other thing that's going on. And this, this runaway inflation, hyperinflation is going on right now. And then there's this, supply chain disruptions, which may or may not be, some people argue that they're just stockpiling some of this stuff, right? I've heard two schools of thought on that. One, I heard that Walmart has sent its own container ship over to China, so it has, it could bring over what it needs for the holiday season, so to speak. But then I've heard others, guys with, videos showing these container ships in the docks that are just, sitting there and not being unloaded. But whatever the case may be, the fact of the matter is their supply chain, like I said, whatever the root cause is, and whether it's, so there's supply chain disruptions, there's hyperinflation, right? There's bloatware in your computers. The country's a corporatocracy. It's run by big tech, big pharma, military industrial complex, the Fed, big ag, big media, right? Right? It's not a constitutional republic, democratic republic, blah, 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 right? And that whole, and the world is it's basically an organized crime syndicate at Davos and the World Economic Forum. And so, that's the reality that, that's the backdrop of the world we live in today and the country we live in. Pardon me. So, but freedom is fun and, life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness. You got to have happiness. So detach yourself from the media, right? Try to fight the bloatware like I am using, try to keep your equipment and your appliances and all your other stuff operating. Take care of your equipment, right? And you got to patch things and fix things the way they used to in the old days. You can't buy something new because new is too expensive now. They've priced it out of reach. And and you got to keep your cabinets and pantry just filled with food, just a regular food. You don't have to be a prepper. Just like, keep pasta and, and food and whatever you eat in your cabinets and stuff. And, if there's a problem or a supply chain disruption, or we get back into one of these lockdown situations, which, is quite possible.
Your papers, please.
All the stuff they're doing, that you'll be okay. You'll get through it. Like I said, don't think in terms of, I'm going to keep repeating this because I think, so few people watch this show. That the idea, remember, your grill that you may have on your patio, your outdoor patio, your deck, right? Or that hibachi you keep, in your garage that you sometimes put outside your garage to heat up a hamburger or a hot dog or a steak. Don't pack that stuff away until next summer. Because the point of the matter is you can use a grill to boil water to make soup, pasta, right? Mac and cheese, oatmeal, whatever you want. Just use a stainless steel pot, or a cast iron pan. You could make eggs on a grill. See, people are so into this idea of a device for one purpose use for a device that they don't think about that. It's no. So, if the fit hits the shan, just remember, and the power's out, like last year down in Texas for 2 weeks or something, it's like you don't have to go starving and freezing. Get one of these, jackeries and have electricity and charge your devices with it. Right? Use your grill outdoors. Obviously, don't do anything like that indoors. You'll get yourself, suffocate yourself. But, you can make food on a grill, besides hot dogs and hamburgers and steaks, Keep a cooler around and everything. If power goes out, everything in the freezer, immediately put it in that cooler. Along with some stuff that's in your refrigerator that you want to last for a day or two, because the stuff that's frozen solid, that's all on the bottom of the cooler. The stuff on the top, that stuff will last a day or two with that frozen food, and then go through that stuff. That gets you through your first week almost. Then hit your pantry, you're through your second week. Within 2 weeks, the power will be back on, everything be back to normal. And you will have, gotten through this thing, especially if you had one of these power things that was charging your smartphone and your laptop, or maybe charging your TV, and you were using the over-the-air channel to watch some TV or keep the kids busy by watching some kiddie game so they could do whatever. Making popcorn on your grill, bag of marshmallows, keep the kids happy, jar of peanut butter, none of that stuff goes bad. And, and so when I hear these tragic stories about these people, they're starving, it's like, keep a case of bottled water in your pantry, right? You know what I mean? It's like the simple stuff, It's like Bill Clinton. It's the economy, stupid. It's like the simple things, common sense. And then freedom is fun. Keep a couple candles around and some flashlights with some batteries. But the idea is that, other people around you, they might be in a panic, and you'll be like, hey, I'm fine. We got light. We could cook. We'll get through this thing, And that's the way to be. And so, just think about that kind of stuff. Because I don't know. You don't know. It's hard to say. Hard days may be ahead, maybe not. Maybe things will blow over. But I heard yesterday, the guy whose name you don't want to speak is talking about, is being the Grinch. Christmas is going to have to be canceled again this year. I heard that on some, congressional interview with him or something like that. Somebody had it, something, because I watch YouTube. So I get the clips. So I don't know. These guys want this to be forever. This is a transition. When they say Great Reset, they mean it. They don't want those stores coming back. They don't want small businesses. This is a big corporate takeover, okay? It's bloatware and the corporatocracy. They want, they want the wealthy to have access to all of certain things, and they want everyone else to be basically, like serfs, controllable, right? And the corporatocracy, when you see like Amazon last year had its best year ever during a tragic period when all these small businesses went out of business, right? Well, that makes corporate sense to their shareholders. They're going, hey, this is the way to go, man. So, we're seeing this transition. This is a societal change in the way things are. And then there's all this socioeconomic geopolitics going on around the world that nobody's talking about, and the news media is not covering it. So who knows what's going to happen with China and Taiwan? There's weird stuff going on in Australia that doesn't even make logical sense, because Australia was one of the least hit countries, with this whole thing of all, almost, right? They had some of the least amount of cases and deaths and stuff. And they're like, and it's like a prison, colony over there. And so there's really crazy stuff going on. And like I say, nobody's talking about Venezuela anymore. Nobody's talking about all that craziness that happened in South Africa. Nobody's talking about like what China's doing and meddling in in the continent of Africa, in countries there where they're taking control of infrastructure. And then forget about what happened in Afghanistan. Like, you notice how that's like out of the news? They've totally deflected away because, they're focusing on some guy, right? Some disappearance or some, homicide type of thing. And somehow they forgot about that the billions of dollars of like military equipment is in the hands of these people. Nobody's talking about Iran and the Middle East. And then all these, and then they're pushing this CO2 thing, 0.004 CO2, but they're not paying any attention whatsoever to all this volcanic eruptions like La Palma and all this stuff shooting up, which is definitely going to be cooling the planet big time. We've had a lot of volcanic activity lately, right? It's been a major uptick in that. And all that ash up there, that affects the climate. Not to mention that the Earth's magnetic field is weak. The sun's going through its long-term cycle. I went through that yesterday. Possibilities of CMEs and different things, and then other Earth catastrophes that we're kind of coming due on. So, I've kind of gone over time here. So, sorry about that. I just got on a babble. But anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate it, Good morning. Don't forget to check out TonyCaravanLive.com, ROCKFLUX.com. Great solar stuff. You can get that stuff to get you through. Cold weather's coming around. Storm season, all that kind of stuff. And my new book, Then What, is out there. It's a good book. Get it. You can get the print version. It's only $9.95 on Amazon, and I've got a link to it on those sites. So check it out, my friend.